Hey Ross, you think it's time that we answer the biggest question in board gaming?
Yes.
Do you know what that question is?
Are meeples real?
Yeah. I mean, meeples are real. I'm wearing one. Like, I've got a shirt that
That is
says,
true.
if you like it, then you should have put a meeple on it. No, it's what are the best 50 board games? Obviously.
Obviously. And who better to settle this than you and I?
Yeah.
World acclaimed board game experts.
That is exactly who we are. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Top of the Box, where we're talking about some board games. My name is Luke, that is Ross, and we're going to just go through some board games and tell you what our top 50 is. It's about time, quite frankly, that we went through what our top 50 board games are. We've been saying we wanted to do this for a few months now.
I feel like at the end of
to do it.
well, at the end of every video, I feel we're like. It's coming up soon, but we've been saying that for about 5 videos now, so...
Yeah.
This happened, I guess. I don't know what we're going to say at the end of this one, though.
Well, the end of this one will be tune in for the next 10 in this, because we are just going to do 50 to 41 in this video. We're just going to go through our 50 to 41 and, go through that. We should probably say a little bit about how we chose these games. We went on to Pub Meeple, as we all do these days. We just did a side-by-side comparison of this game, this game, this game, this game. It's just what we liked. So yeah, I kind of went on this is what I'm feeling to play at this point.
I've gone slightly different, I think. I think I think that is the case, 100%. But definitely, as we started creeping towards like the top 15, it's like what's really hot for me right now. But I think there's also a little, because I'm trying to play through my collection at the moment, there's a little element of what I want to play, or what I'm looking forward to, or what I'm reminiscing about a little bit, I feel a little bit nostalgic about. So that's creeped in there, I think, on the list a little bit.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be quite a large factor, I think. Some of these games, of course, we'll have only played maybe once, twice. We played them a while ago. There's going to be memories, which is why this is such a subjective thing. But obviously, it's objective because this is the top 50 games of all time.
Yes.
But we're going to have that. 2 comparisons. My list, we're going to have Ross's list. Those are going to be somewhat different because we're different gamers, I guess. We're at different points in our board gaming journey. Ross sort of wandered around family lane for a while.
I'm coming back in a bit hard as well.
You're coming back in.
Fair, so
he is. There was a joke I was going to make there, and I would have had to cut it out. So make your own jokes there, people. So yeah, that is what we're going to do. We're going to go through it, but also because we both did this, we did it. I did it in January. Ross did it in.
So I did one. I looked back. I did one at the beginning of April, and then I did one last week. And
at the end of April.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, it has changed. Not a huge amount, but there's because I played because I'm playing so many games recently. There's just a few which creeped back in as actually this is quite good. I do quite enjoy this actually. So.
Yeah, and I had that because I did my list in January when Laura and I finished playing through our entire collection. But between January and March is when I did it again. We then went to things like Aircon. We played a bunch more games. We played more games online. And I did think about doing it again today in preparation for this video. And I didn't have the time or the mental capacity to do it. So I just went with my old one. So we're going to do a sort of a comparison of where it was last time and how much it has changed for us. We're probably going to do this again, maybe at the beginning of next year, maybe at the end of the year after Ross has played through his collection, and I've played a few more games in my collection a bit more. And ultimately, I'm getting games so that I can put them onto this shelf, because that is the shelf that is in my board game collection, and I realise I've pointed, I don't know which way I'm going to be in the edit. So to cover myself, it's going to be this shelf.
I help you out.
Thank you, Ross. That is the one that lives in my game room. So that's what I want to have on my top 50 board game shelf. So let's get into this. I have a couple of honourable mentions. Do you have a couple of honourable mentions?
Yes, I think I do. We didn't quite make the cut. Yeah, definitely one.
Okay. I've got 2, so I'll go first with my first one. My first honourable mention is Woodcraft, because I really enjoyed that play. So Woodcraft is a game where you are basically craftspeople making things out of wood, and the dice that you have are different types of wood. You're getting different tools. You're sort of creating contract fulfillment stuff, doing different action selections. I think it's a really good and intricate game. I want to play it more. We've only played it once so far, which is why it hasn't made the cut this time. And also, we only played it quite recently. We didn't when I did this list back in March. It wasn't on there. But we also played it wrong.
Yeah.
So I know that's if I play it correctly, which I'm planning to do later this week, that will probably make a difference to how I want to do things. So I think that's a key thing for me. Woodcraft.
Again, a little bit interestingly on how we maybe have interpreted this list slightly differently, because I know I like this game, and I know that we played it wrong, and I think if we play it right, I'll probably like it even more. So mine, no spoilers, but mine's a little bit higher up, so it has made that top 50. So we'll have to wait to see where it comes up on there. So you can probably tell how optimistic I've been about the placement of some of these games. Probably, we'll see if it stands the test of time.
What's your honourable mention?
My honourable mention is Calico, actually. So
okay.
In fact, sitting literally here behind me. So it's one been played quite a few times recently, and yeah, it's just I'm going to sound like a broken record this way. Quite love a little puzzle game at the moment, and so it fits quite nicely. But it's a really easy one to sucker people in who maybe aren't really sure about board games or something like that, and you're just like, this is a cute theme. It's got a blanket. It's got cats. What's not to like? And then they get down to it and they're like, oh, I've got to actually think about what I'm doing a little bit, but the theme carries it a little bit for those who maybe aren't as basically. If you're placing tiles and you're trying to match stuff, it doesn't sound that exciting. But like, you're placing quilts and there's cats.
That works a lot with the people in your life. I know that.
It does.
Less so for me because I'm not a cat person, but you know what? It works for everyone.
Yep.
Works for most people. My second honourable mention is, again, a game that I've only played once, and I'm fairly certain as I play it more, I get more experience in it, I delve deeper into the lore of the game, it's going to just rise and rise and rise for me, and that's Final Girl.
Ooh, yes. Okay.
The
surprising. I'm surprised that it's not higher up your list, but it's on my brain. I'm like, oh, I like. I'm thinking through, if I was in your position, oh, this sounds fun, I like this, it's going to sneak up into the higher ranks. So I'm really curious about like what's made the cut on 50 games if like you're enjoying that right now and it's not.
Well, that's the thing. It's not a case of Final Girl wouldn't have made the cut.
Of course.
At the time I did the list, I've only played it. I only played it in the last couple of weeks.
This is true.
So at the time I did the list, same for Woodcraft, neither of those games were in that list.
Yes.
So they are almost certainly going to be in my top 50 in the future. It's just right now they didn't make the cut because I hadn't played them at the time I did the list.
Yes.
So that's our honourable mentions. Ross, you gave your 51 as well, just for a little bit of extra content, I guess. So let's go into number 50.
So, for my 50, and as I said, as I kind of maybe give a little bit of indication, a lot of my games on this list aren't necessarily the ones that I own, so particularly at this top, at this level here. So, number 50, getting straight into it. After saying that, I'm getting into it and I'm not getting into it.
After zigzagging a little bit.
After zigzagging all over the place. This is my chaotic brain. Kingdom Builder is number 50 for me. So
nice.
Yeah, so obviously kind of area control, placing meeples down. It's one which I've a friend who I used to play loads of games with when I lived somewhere else. I used to play it quite frequently, and it's kind of crept back in via BGA. So it's just a solid game. It's nothing, it's not. It doesn't blow me away, but it's definitely sitting in that it's in that sweet 50 spot.
Yeah, it's been one of your favourites for a long time, hasn't it? Because it's been on your. You've always talked about it. It's been quite good. I like Kingdom Builder. It didn't make the cut. I did cull it recently, but I'll get into that a little bit later. My number 50 is the Isle of Cats Explore and Draw.
Oh, okay.
This is one of 2 games on my list that I don't own. So all of these are games that I do own, which is interesting that there's that comparison. Explore and Draw is one that's on Ross's shelf. It's probably in the background somewhere.
Actually.
It's there somewhere.
It's right at the top. You can't see it. It's up here somewhere.
Fair, it's out of shot. But yeah, in the Isle of Cats, you are taking tiles and you're placing them onto a ship. You're rescuing cats in the baskets, giving them fish, trying to set those polyomino shapes in place. In the Explore and Draw, you're doing a roll and write version, effectively, or a flip and fill version, or however you want to call it. And I love a polyomino game. I love roll and writes. I think this is a really good marriage of the two in a theme that's not necessarily one that resonates for me, but I do like that you've got all the different coloured markers to colour things in. I think it's less mean than the base Isle of Cats because you're not drafting effectively. That takes something out of the game, but you have you have that tableau that's available for you. You don't have to worry about the fish management, which is a pain, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And you've just got, this is what's available to you. How do you want to do this? And you get certain different scoring objectives that come up that you can score. I think it's really good. I just think it's a better game than the full fat version, personally. And it's a smaller footprint, which is nice.
And I mean, obviously I said about Calico a little bit a minute ago, it's easy to get someone into. It's a little bit easy. You choose one of these, you draw the shape on here. You don't have to worry about the whole, because it's just one mechanism you're explaining there. You don't have to talk about this is the card drafting and everything like that. So it's absolutely in and out of focus, I think. But there we go.
He's talking about his camera, not just himself. But yeah, so that's my number 50. Let's get into 49. So at 49 is a almost crossover with what Ross has already said, which is really interesting to get this early on. It's not Kingdom Builder, it's Winter Kingdom. It's the sequel game to Kingdom Builder. In Winter Kingdom, you're doing pretty much the same thing as Kingdom Builder. You are taking your you get your card comes up with your different terrain types on it, and you're placing out your little houses and settlements to expand your terrain and have that area control aspect. Where it differs from Kingdom Builder is, aside from it's now a bigger board, you have 7 hexagonal shapes that sort of wrap around in a star rather than 4. I had to remember the shapes there, as opposed to the 4 in a rectangle. But you also have 5 different terrains that you're going to be working with. You've got bonus actions that you can do now, which are slight different, but you can buy those and upgrade them and do all sorts of different things with them. I think it's a really good re-implementation. I think there's some really nice differences that they've done. They've got 2 extra optional add-ins that you can do, which I haven't played with yet. I need to give those another go because I do really enjoy Kingdom Builder and Winter Kingdom. And the only reason why I got rid of Kingdom Builder was because I had Winter Kingdom. I didn't need both. So that is, that's my number 49.
That's fair enough, I think, because it's, I mean, I've not played it, but it sounds like the same but more. Or the same but better and more?
Yes.
More flexible?
I think it's a little bit more. A little bit, yes. Because it introduces tunnels that you can put if you put your houses next to them, they can just go through the tunnel and then just pop out on the other side, and it gives you a little bit more flexibility around the map. So it gives you a few more options to play with.
It's quite interesting. We've got the early on the crossover. For me, I've got coming in Rolling Realms.
Ooh, okay. That's high on my list.
Yes. So probably the reason why it's at this point in the list is just because I've not had a chance to play it as much. So I've played it. It's made a big impact on me. I quite enjoy it. I do love a little bit of meta kind of board game within board game referencing. So obviously a bit more clever. Roll and Write, where it references some of the other games, board games that exist, and typically it's a kind of roll a dice and do a thing, or depending on which board's available to you, essentially. But yeah, it's like I say, it's I think I've only played it once, maybe twice.
You played
once digitally and once physically, I think.
I don't remember. We did stream it a little while ago. There's probably some B-roll footage just sort of rolling over with us, but just playing it right now.
But so it's obviously, I think if I play it more, it would creep up that list, but just because the play time is slower down.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely something that, because it started off as a Stonemaier only game, but they're now branching out into other games. Like there's a Terra Mystica program, there's Architects of the West Kingdom, there's Ark Nova, I think. I feel like that's a thing. That might be a more recent one.
It might be.
Editor me will correct me if I'm right.
Well, since you asked,
There are indeed all sorts of promo packs available for Rolling Realms on the Stonemaier website, including things like Architects of the West Kingdom, Honeybuzz, and indeed Ark Nova. So you can go and check out, see if there's any of your favourite games on there. This isn't sponsored, we just wanted to let you know. Back to the guys. Thanks, Editor Me. I don't know what I'm going to do there. I'm just going to put something up.
You need to cut to you sitting at the computer with the camera behind you saying yes or no, basically. That's what you need to do.
Just as I'm editing it, yeah, yes. That's going to be... this bit is also going to stay in the edit, so...
for a board game about... for talking about a board game that's very meta, you need to do something meta within the reference to it.
Yeah, I do. That's... if I did that successfully, let us know in the comments. So yeah, that's our number 49. Let's go into 48.
Oh, happily pick it up there. So 48. Again, a game that's not in my collection but is in your collection, and I think surprised you when we did the recent. And this is a great plug, by the way. So if we can just have a little window up there, when we did our board game shelf challenge,
yes.
Adventures of Robin Hood.
Yes.
So okay. I think it sort of surprised you that I picked it when we were at yours, picking from your games, or at least picked it as early as maybe as I did. But yeah, yes. I'm really enjoying storytelling games at the moment, yeah, it's. In fact, I think I particularly like about this game the way you move around the board. Essentially, is you have in fact, it's a little bit of a throwback to like a Warhammer Days and stuff, where you've literally got like the yardsticks and you're moving your units. So it's kind of like that for me.
Yeah.
But with like obviously the storytelling and the mini role playing elements that are thrown in there. So yeah, definitely enjoyable.
I tell you, it's higher on my list.
Yes.
It's also one of the games that Laura and I both picked. In fact, it was the only game that Laura and I both picked for our 10x10 challenge for this year. There'll be a card for that floating around, so go and check that out. And I'm glad that there was an expansion release this year, because otherwise that would have been a lot harder to do, because there's 7 different scenarios, but there is a branch option that you can do, so there's a couple of different ways you can play the story. But I really like it. We've played through the campaign once, Laura and I have. We're hoping to do it again. It's going to be fun. So my number 48 is a game that is as square as the box it comes in. It is a cheese-wearing Lederhosen. It is Cubitos, the racing game where you're pressing your luck to run around the board in this cube-themed world. It's really bizarre art to have a hairy Lederhosen wearing cheese on the box. Yes. But you know what? I'm okay with that. I think it's great. I think all the critters that are in there are cuboid in some description. It's a nice little world. Basically, you are having a race. You are trying to run around the board as fast as you can. You've got these dice which are very badly weighted against you, and you are just rolling them and trying to push your luck to see how you go. If you get one success, then you can carry on and roll the remainder dice again and see what happens. If you bust, then you bust, and that's a problem. So you got to see how it goes. You've got to push your luck as far as you can, buy more dice into your pool. I think it's great. I think it's great fun. It's a good twist, because I do like a push your luck game.
I was just about to say. I feel like push your luck games are just sneaking in. It's like for you, just like a stealth mechanic that you're just starting to love and love and love. It's just creeping
a little bit. Yeah, it's surprising. There's a couple of push your luck games on this list actually that will come up that have just slowly started to rise, and I think they only came about relatively recently, like in the last couple of years or so. So that's something else to look out for. So that is number 47. No, that was our 48. Let's look at the 47 now. So my number 47 is a game all about nature. It's won the Spiel des Jahres in the last year. Oh, that's a difficult thing to say when you've had teeth removed recently. It is Cascadia, the little tile placement game where you're building out this natural habitat. It's the successor to Calico. And then the prequel to Verdant. I guess in that sort of AEG flat-out games puzzle series where you're just taking a tile and a little animal token and you're placing them into your habitat and then you're putting down the animal into one of those sections. And there's different combinations of the animals that you can score all together. And yeah, it's a really peaceful game. It's a really nice game to just play, be calm about, take your turn, place a tile. And I like how it scales, because it just scales the number of tiles that you have. So you play exactly the same number of turns in the game. as opposed to something like Carcassonne, where you just play the same amount of game regardless, but you play more of it if there are fewer of you. You play exactly the same. And there is an expansion coming out this year, which I'm looking forward to. There is the Landmarks expansion, I believe it's called, where there's just going to be some more stuff, and it will include like an extra options for a 5th to 6th player, and some extra scoring options within there. So there's something to look out for. That might make it bounce back up again. At the moment, it's a little low, down to 47. It was a lot higher the last time I did this list. That'll been on the screen, but that's Cascadia. That's my 47. What's yours?
In fact, I was going to say about Cascadia, I think that's one which obviously is still quite popular for you because it's within the 50, and that's obviously quite impressive anyway, the number of games we play. But I think it has fallen for you a little bit, I think, probably.
It has.
Yeah, it's just interesting. That was one which, like, still, it's a solid game, but it's just slipped in comparison to other things, I think, which is kind of the...
It is my favourite of the three, of Calico, Verdant, and Cascadia. It is my favourite by quite a long way.
Yeah.
So I didn't really gel with Calico. I found it too mean, almost.
Yes.
It's a little bit too harsh in that aspect.
Yeah, you have to sacrifice something, I think, in Calico, don't you? Anyway.
Your soul.
My 47, a bit of a classic, Seven Wonders.
Ooh, interesting. Okay.
That's
our first interesting.
Yeah. And this is, get the counter up. And this is... again, indicating earlier, I kind of got a few of the classic sorts of throwbacks or some nostalgia, whatever phrase you want to use in there. And yeah, Seven Wonders in there. So again, played a little bit on BGA recently. Not actually played a physical copy in a long time, but it's just always. I think it's probably going to be a mainstay, really, definitely in that 60 to 40 kind of section. I think probably and typically it's because I play with so larger groups of people, and it's such a good. It's just so easy just to pull out. It has more recently, I guess, been replaced a little bit by Sushi Go, when I tend to want to grab a drafting game with lots of players. I'm probably more likely to pick that up, maybe, just because of the theme again. But just again, solid drafting game. I like the history theme. I think sometimes it's a bit harder to sell to some people.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like I say, it's kind of a staple, really. I think in everyone's collection.
Yeah, I think it's a good one. I've got Seven Wonders myself. We both have the first edition, I think.
Yeah.
I kind of regret that I got the first edition, not the second, because the second edition is really pretty. It's like the artwork's a little bit updated, but it's good for 2 to 7. Well, 3 to 7. Let's be honest, you're not going to play it at 2. You got Seven Wonders Duel for that, so
exactly.
That's it. But it's a good classic. So yeah, that's our 47s. What's at 46?
46. I have Flamecraft again, another game that I don't own that you own. But this is one of the games where I'm like, I played it once. I think I'm going to like this. I need to play it more to really like solidify where it will sit in this list. And to be fair, it's probably a bit mean actually, because it probably booted a few other games out of that 50 list, at the top 50, that probably deserve to be there a little bit more. But I'm like, but also again, when you got that comparison of the two games, I'm like, I want to play Flamecraft. I want to try it out again. So, I'm going to be a bit controversial. Do I think the dragon theme's maybe a bit gimmicky, a bit of a sucker in for some people? Probably. But do I also play Sushi Go because it's got cute sushi faces on it? Yes. So I can't really complain too much, can I? So
that's the thing.
Good game.
I think one of the things that is good about it is I know there were concerns when it first came out that a lot of people were talking about the artwork, and not the game. But I think the gameplay's solid. I think there's enough game in there to play and to keep playing, and I think there's, from looking at the insert that came with my copy, there's almost certainly going to be some form of expansion somewhere down the line, and I think that's, I think it's very reasonable. So yeah, I like Flamecraft as well. I think it's a good one. My number 46 is one you and I really need to play together because I think you would quite like it. It is Korra: Rise of an Empire.
Okay.
And this is it's a sort of a Civ building game, sort of, where you're bumping up different tracks.
That does sound like me.
It sounds like a thing that you're very much into. You've got a hand of cards with different actions that you can play, depending on what die values on the dice you roll, and you can play out the actions based on that dice value. And it will basically bump up these different tracks, and you get different rewards as you're going up these tracks. And I think I like it because it's a historical themed game, because it's set in the ancient cities, the sort of the ancient Greeks and Roman cities, that sort of area. So I think it's one that would be right up there in theme for you. I think you'd enjoy it. I've played once at Thirsty Meeples, which is a board game cafe in Oxford. If you haven't been there, go check it out. They're great. And it was a game that I then bought almost immediately afterwards because I thought it was a lot of fun. So that's something to do. Something to get. I need to get it to the table more. That's why it's as low as it is. I say low. It's like there's a whole like.
Yes.
I think I've played at the moment 400-ish games that I've recorded since I started recording games about a year and a half ago, which is a weird flex, but okay. I just did that to myself. But
there's always someone who's going to have played more or done whatever. So you know what I mean.
Absolutely.
So just drop the number in, because all that does really is just there's someone who'll be like, wow, and there'll be someone like, really, like,
noob.
Yeah, could put more effort in.
But that's there's a whole bunch of games that are not even anywhere near this. Like there's 300 games that are not in the top 100 of my games. So it's pretty high up there. I want to give it another go. I want to play more of it. I want to explore it a lot more. I think it's one that went under the radar a little bit because it was published by Yellow. But in their sort of expert range, because Yellow's more known for their family weight games.
Yeah.
And I think it just slipped under the radar a little bit. I think people talked about it for a bit, and then it spit off. But I think it's good. I like it. I really like it a lot. So that is our 46. Let's go into 45. At 45, we're back in pressure or luck territory. Only this time we're doing it with cards and chips and little dots on things. It's 10. 10 is another little push or luck game. This is by AEG this time, where you are basically flipping over cards and you're just trying not to get above 10 or below 10. And there's cards that will come out which will give you either currency or it will give you numbers for set collecting, effectively. You've got 4 different colours, suits, and numbers 1 to 9. There isn't a 10. But if you get that 1 to 9, it's worth 10 points. The ones 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are more plentiful, and then obviously the higher numbers are a little bit rarer. But as you flip it over, you can either choose to take the currency or you can choose to take the cards of the market. And if you go bust, then your opponents, all the cards will go to the market. So you have to push your luck as much as you can and just take the cards and hope and see how that goes for you. So, excuse me. That is my number 45. It is 10.
And this is definitely going to get interesting out of you, I think, is Foundations of Rome. We played it digitally once.
We did.
And I really wanted to back it when it went to Kickstarter. Then went,
yes,
Jesus has a lot of plastic and a lot of weight and a lot of shipping costs, basically. I went, nah, I can't afford this plastic or this shipping, and didn't back it. But actually, and it's probably a very light game, really, to be honest, and on the spectrum of like the games that I tend to like. But there's just something. I mean, again, we played the digital version, but I crave it. I just crave the tactile, plasticky, placing buildings down within a grid, within Rome, building all up. A little bit of the when's the right moment to block together all of your buildings to get them bigger. A strategy behind that. But yeah, so it kind of surprised me actually when it crept into this top 50, because it is based off one digital play, and the desire to own it basically and have just a big square box on my shelf. That's what it's on.
It's a big chunker. I have played it physically. A friend of mine has got it, and we played it at Aircon at 5, and it's an interesting little game. There's lots of different modularities. I do personally think they've missed the trick with not having a standard £30 cardboard polyomino version. Yes. I get the deluxified version, but for the weight of the game, I think they've missed out on.
I tell you what else they missed a trick on, which they might have got a little bit of uptake on, is yes, the cardboard version, but as part of that, they sell the files for 3D printing those models.
Yes.
Because so many people have 3D printers now, and they probably could have sold that as like an add-on or something like that for people to have that available. I mean, to be honest, you probably could 3D print your own copy of the game. I'm just throwing it out there, but yeah.
If you want to 3D print a copy of the game and send it to Ross, then let us know.
Great, yeah. But so you could So I think they're just because they probably priced at least one individual out, but they probably priced quite a lot of people out at that point by having on there. But yeah, it's in the same way I like Santorini because you got all it's very tactile
little pieces. Yeah, it's a nice one. All right, that's 45. Let's go to 44.
So for my 44 is Above and Below.
Oh,
so a game I do. Every time I say a game now, I check to see what this is on my shoulder. A game I do now own, but didn't own originally on the one time I played it. So I've not played this copy yet. But I played it at Board Game Cafe. I played it at Drafts in London. It's kind of was the sort of, I think it was the first. It might have been the first story element within a game where I'm like, oh cool, you can have a passage read to you, have to make a decision, and then have some sort of game impact come out of that decision. Do you get X or do you get Y, basically? Obviously, I have loads of their games now. Red Raven, so you can't see it. Sleeping Gods up at the top shelf and everything. So I have become a bit of a sucker for them, to be fair.
You are a fan of Red Raven and Ryan Lockett games. You've got Islebound is hidden in there. I've got Near and Far in the other room.
Right behind me. It is right behind me. As it blurs to the focus. It's just one I need to play again, I think, and that probably will adjust the positioning. This will be really interesting to properly come back and revisit this once I've got through and played all these games and gone.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just remember it being fun, but actually that was because I'd only played 50 games or 70 games at that point, not hundreds of games. So
yeah. It'll be interesting to compare it to Near and Far when you do get around to playing it. But cool. All right, my number 44 is completely exactly the same game, same weight, same table space. It does absolutely everything. It's Infinity Gauntlet, a love letter game, which is is same game. It's the same game, Ross. You cannot convince me. No, Infinity Gauntlet, a love letter game, is love letter, but reskinned to Marvel, where instead of trying to get a love letter to the princess or prove that you are the princess, you're trying to either defeat Thanos or you're trying to win and gather all the Infinity Stones. It takes it from being a player elimination 2 to 4 player game to a one against many 2 to 6, I think it is. That you can do, and one person will play as Thanos, the others will play as the Avengers, and it'll be multiple cards are played, each with different powers, and it takes a classic, a good classic, eliminates the thing that I hate from it, and puts a new skin on it. I think there's all sorts of different love letter variants now. Like there's a Star Wars one. I think there's a DC one as well.
There's loads, and some of them are really hard to get hold of now as well, I think. So
yeah, but I am happy to see that there is a LGBT version as well, which is Princesses Forever After or something like that. Somewhere along that line, I'll flash it up and it will correct me. But yeah, I think this version is, I think it's the one that works best for me because it's one that Laura and I take pretty much everywhere we go, because we just pop it into either my pocket or Laura's purse, and it's just a
original.
Yeah, it's a tiny little purple bag, and it usually gets a response when we've got it out on the table from like a waiter or something. It's like, what's that? What are you doing? It's like, oh, this is a game,
and it's how you suck another one in.
Exactly, you get people into it. We were having dinner one day, and just while we were waiting, someone came over and was like, Is that a Marvel game? what's it called? And they were, as I saw, they turned up, they got their phone out, and they just started typing into to find it to buy it for themselves, which I thought was quite cool. But yeah, that's my number 44. That's our number 44. Let's go into 43. So my number 43 has had a bit of a tumble in these rankings today, but that's probably because I haven't played it enough, and I haven't played it recently. It is a game about passive-aggressive cohabitation. It is Decorum.
Yeah.
Which is a really nice puzzle game where you are just trying to decorate a house and solve this little puzzle. I think the game works best because you've got limited communication. You can only limited to say that I love it, I hate it, or I'm fine with it. It's okay. I think the game really shines if you play it with a bunch of role players, which I tend to do. If I play it, I either play it with Laura, or I played it with you and Laura. I played it with a couple other RPG people, and you just lean into the role play of the scenario. Yes. You just get silly, quite frankly, and I think that's something that you need to add in every so often to games to just sort of give that element of lift. And it's then the people that you're playing with as well as the game shining.
Brain that one out, right? Because you could just be like, what's the most optimum path, and you don't really always want to do that. You want to have a little bit of a challenge along the way. So yeah, I think it's dropped out of my top 50. I think on this time.
Oh really?
I think it was in the top 50 originally. I think it's dropped out.
Okay.
But
yeah, that's my number 43. What's yours, Ross?
My number 43, very like previously, very similar game, very similar table space and everything is Decorum. It's Terraforming Mars.
Of course, yeah.
So, as we'll probably find out as we go through some of the videos, has recently been replaced by its predecessor a little bit on where it is on the scale. So, for me, Terraforming Mars was always like, oh, this is like good, like meaty board game. This is fun. This is like, I love a space theme game, and yeah, it's just filled with like bits basically. That feels good to me. But it's almost now become its downfall a little bit, I think, because if I'm like, well, I mean, it's your copy to be fair, but if we're like, if we want to play it, then it's like, I mean, it also doesn't help we play when there's a toddler around. Let's just be clear as I just continue diverting off different tangents here. But I think I've come around to smaller table space, but as much crunch games, basically.
Yeah. So you're probably looking more towards the Ares Expedition rather than the.
Will make appearance, I'm sure of it, somewhere on this list further up.
It will make an appearance certainly for at least one of us. So yeah, that is I really like Terraforming Mars. I mean, my copy is I got the big box copy. You absolutely do not need it. You can just play with the cardboard version. But I've got it because I like it. So,
and to be honest, maybe I need to flip my thinking on it, which is, well, if you're going to do it, just sit down and do it, and then and enjoy all of the things, and don't like overthink the fact that this is like stuff for stuff's sake. You know, you want to be like, it's stuff for stuff's sake. That's basically
exactly. This is a big thing because there's like you add into that element of like I'm now placing a city.
Yes. Oh, the nuke, for example, was quite
that's fun.
Mushroom clouds go down on there.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, so that's at 43 for us. Let's see how we do at 42. We've got 2 more games to see in this first list.
Yes. So, for me, I have Space Alert, which is something and this is a sentence I raise every time I say Space Alert, which is, love this game, very hard to introduce and get people on board with playing it.
Yes.
So
we tried to play it at Centre Parks, didn't we? Or did we start playing it and then get disrupted or something?
I think we started and got a bit disrupted. It's just okay. So Space Alert, you're all on a ship. And something is going wrong, basically, typically, and you're programming the order of commands that you want to do, and then you go back at the end and then you see what you were doing, but at some point you accidentally went upstairs instead of downstairs, or there's 2 of you trying to use the lift at the same time, so then instead of like powering the shields, you just shoot the blaster into the sky and nothing's there, basically. So it's just the chaos behind it a little bit is just quite fun. it does. I think in fact, it does handle it quite well. But you always fall into the trap a little bit of one person just power gaming it basically. Now they do manage that a little bit by designating someone as like the captain, someone as communications, so everyone has a bit of a role within there. But probably more of either a solo or maybe 2 or 3 player. I think when you start to increase that number and there's less defined roles for people, they just become like another body that's just like putting cards down, and the chaos that comes out of people trying to talk doesn't necessarily make the game more interesting at that point.
It muddies the waters a little bit as people try and figure things out. Yeah. No, interesting. My number 42 is a game that is constantly getting expansions, but standalone expansions, so you can play it. You can just take these out into little bits. I love doing this and then looking at your face.
I'm just trying to figure out
the
game as you're going along, basically, but I don't know if I can ever really guess it exactly.
No. It is Disney Villainous.
Okay. No, that does make
sense. In Disney Villainous, you are playing as a Disney villain. You are you're either you could be Scar, you could be Hades, you could be Yzma, you could be Ratigan, you could be the Evil Queen. You could be all these different Disney characters, and you are going about doing different things in your realm, getting all sorts of different options, and you're fighting basically the heroes within your own story. This has come up my list quite a lot. Like, this was at 96 when I did this list in January. It jumped up quite a lot because we've started exploring. I think what's helped it jump up a bit is that the person I play with most, which is Laura, although I'll rephrase that. The person I play most physically with is Laura. The person I play with most in general is you. But Laura has gotten more confident in board gaming.
Yes.
And therefore playing this game becomes more of a challenge because we're both competing and we're both trying to do different things. So there's now a case of, okay, let's figure out how's the best strategy to play as the Queen of Hearts. Let's figure out how's best to play against Yzma. You've got all that different things. And now they've got Pixar villains coming in. They've got all sorts of different things coming in. All sorts of different options to mix and match these. The only thing I will say is that I think they lost a little bit when they tried to do a Marvel version. They did something slightly different for it, and it killed it for us, which is a shame because we quite like Marvel.
You do like Marvel, yes.
But the Disney theme just lives on, and we've got a whole bunch of expansions for it now. So it's one that's probably going to stick in our collection for a while. So that's it.
Interesting.
All right.
I don't think that's. I mean, I always feel like I'm being really harsh about the game. I don't feel like that's really makes like the top 100 of my games. I think I don't know what it is about Villainous. It's just never really it's just never got me, and I don't know whether it's just the group I play it with, or it felt like I played it. I think I played it 3 times. I think the same character won all 3 games, and I kept getting this character just must be overpowered, and it's just kind of ruining the experience. But it probably that I just don't know how to play the other characters, how to count. It just didn't feel like there was a lot of interaction. I couldn't really stop someone doing stuff, and in which case I'm just playing my own thing. But you're probably going to tell me that's not the game at all.
I think there is an element of you are doing your own thing, but because it has that fate action where you can interfere with someone else's options, it can make a real difference. I think also, and this is not to sound disrespectful, you have only played the base game.
Yeah. How disrespectful.
I think that I know, right? I think with the expansions, the characters get a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more complicated. Yeah, They're not just like Prince John is have 20 power at the start of the turn. Ursula is have like these different contracts in place. Captain Hook is defeat Peter Pan and the Jolly Roger, that sort of thing. And it's those are relatively straightforward to do.
Yes.
But it's not necessarily that difficult to counteract the issues that can come from the Fate deck. And I think there's luck does come into it a fairly good chunk.
Yeah, it might also be what I don't love, but yeah.
But you know what? I think it's good. I think it's good to work with what you've got. So I really enjoy it. I think maybe we should try it with some of the expansions.
Yeah, we should. Yeah,
give those characters a go. Yeah. And then I can come back and it'll be number 1 on my list or something. And just suddenly... Yeah, I doubt that very much based on what I know is your number 1.
Yeah.
So that's our That's 42. Last game of this list. What's it going to be as we get into 41s? So, my 41 has been mentioned already in this list.
Oh, interesting.
Sort of. It was mentioned in passing by me. Terraforming Mars.
You really took me on a journey then, but yeah.
Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition.
Nice.
I think it's the card. I say it's a card version of the board game. It kind of is. It's the much smaller version of Terraforming Mars. You are basically you're playing the cards in much the same way, but you've also got that action selection system that comes in from things like Race for the Galaxy.
Yeah.
I think is the most common one that people associate it with, where you choose an action, everyone does that action, and then there's a bonus if you're the one who chose it, or you both do the same action and then nothing else happens, or you get multiple actions. So it's trying to figure out how the other person is going to interact.
Yeah.
It takes out some of the area control that is in regular Terraforming Mars, which I know some people don't like that much. I personally don't mind it. I think it's fine. And you're still going for the same goals, and I think they've simplified how titanium and steel work in Ares Expedition. I haven't played it enough to really delve much more into it, but I do really like Terraforming Mars, and I think this version hits enough of the I am like Terraforming Mars button that makes me go, okay, I really enjoy it. But it doesn't do it so much that it goes, why am I not just playing Terraforming Mars?
Yeah.
You know,
it's sort of in this kind of similar with Alacats and the Draw and Explore version. So they are different games, quite drastically different games, really, but with similar premise mechanics-ish involved.
Yeah, but I think it's somewhat telling, I think, for my taste, that Terraforming Mars is higher than Ares Expedition.
Yes.
But Explore and Draw is higher than Isle of Cats.
Yes.
I think that's an interesting comparison, but who knows? That's it. That's it for me. That's my number 41.
So for my number 41, again, I think another game which is always going to be a staple, I think, in the kind of definitely top 50, I think. Azul. As my camera goes out of focus. So, I think probably by this point, if you're watching this video, or maybe you haven't, but I imagine you've probably played Azul or some variation of Azul, you'd have thought. But just in case, very beautiful, almost look like they're edible tiles. There is definitely a chocolate version as well if you're a chocolateer.
There is a chocolatier version, yes.
Chocoholic?
Chocolatier.
Basically it's kind of drafting, which again I love a little bit of drafting, and you're trying to pull pulls, you're trying to line up the right colours so you can fill up your wonderful floor with some beautiful mosaicing, basically. I think actually technically walls. I think it's walls because it falls to your floor.
Mosaics, I think they fall to the floor and they break. I think that's what the.
So just really pretty game, to be honest. Again, simple to teach, simple to play, and I think it's just always going to be a staple there, really.
Yeah, I think for you prefer the base Azul, the OG, as opposed to the version which I have, which is the Summer Pavilion, and then I've played the Stained Glass of Sintra, and there's a couple of others out there now. But you know what? Each to their own. That is the point of the list. Or is it? Because this is our top 50 lists, and these are the absolute top games of all time, according to us, who are
disagreeing on almost every level so far.
I don't understand the premise. That is our...
top 100 of combination of 150, technically, I guess.
Yeah, sure. This is there's the top 100 games, and depending on if there's any crossover, we'll see how that plays out. Because by the sound of it, there's already going to be some crossover. In fact, there's definitely games that have crossed over already. So this will be the top 90-ish, probably.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, on the basis that a lot of your games are from my collection, that's a good start.
Yes.
That's just how it is. But yeah, that's our first batch of 10 for these games. So we are going to do 4 more of these and see where we end up at the end of this. Thank you very much for joining us for this. Do the things that you do on YouTube, the like, subscribe, comment, let us know where your games are that fall in this list. How do our lists compare to others that you've seen? And yeah, we'll see you then. Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.